Welcome to the SVG-TV News for Tuesday, March 22nd. With the details, I am Khalil Kato. Local traffickers have begun to feel the effects of the Russian-Ukraine conflict with the increase of fuel prices on the international market. On radio last evening, Minister of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, Soboto Caesar, said he recently visited the Kingstown port, where he spoke with a number of traffickers who ply their trade between the neighboring Caribbean islands on a weekly basis to get an update on the impact being felt due to the price increase.
I went to the port and I met with about 25 different traffickers. I spoke to the shippers and they alerted me that over the last month they had to put on $2 extra for the transportation of each box to Trinidad and Tobago. The traffickers also reported to me that the cost of the cardboard box, it went up by over $1.50. And in terms of trucking, for those traffickers who don't have their own trucks, they are basically discussing with the truckers as to what they're going to pay very soon. And we are still very early days in the impacts of the rise in gas prices.
Minister Caesar said farmers also expressed concern about the increase in fertilizer, which he said would be addressed at Cabinet tomorrow.
Also had some discussions with the farmers, and they indicated to me that all farmers are aware that we have been subsidizing the price of fertilizer and other inputs. And they told me that the new price point could be something around $147, up from $100, $95 to $145. And it is a matter that we're going to address at the cabinet level. Last Wednesday, I took a document to the cabinet with a particular amount to be able to subsidize the increase. And I had to await the exact figure from the input warehouse. So I know that farmers are listening, the traffickers are listening, the consumers are also following closely, because if we do not cushion that very substantial increase in the price of fertilizer, it will have an exponential knock-on effect on the cost of goods produced in St. Vincent and the Grenadines for both local consumption and for export.
Already grappling with the rising costs of exporting produce, some local farmers are now being forced to seek alternatives to using fertilizer due to price increases. Earlier this month, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves gave notice to persons operating in the agricultural sector that the price of fertilizers will be increased. He also said government would not be able to absorb the increases. Chief Coordinator of the Eastern Caribbean Trading, Agriculture and Development Organization, ACTAD, Jethro Green, said due to the rising costs of doing business, ACTAD, which supplies root crops to the United Kingdom and France, has had to renegotiate the prices of goods with overseas partners.
The energy price has gone up, and because of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, it has sent prices not only of fertilizer but shipping costs. We from the end are the farmers, but at the same time the people who are, the shipping cost has gone up, the handling cost has gone up, because everything depends on energy. So it's a vicious cycle. So we have to work with our partners to cut costs at their end, cut costs at our end, see how much we could reduce transaction costs so that we could still maintain a very viable and good price for our farmers, while at the same time don't price ourselves out of the market. That's a hardcore reality.
Green said while he understands that government is limited in what they can do to assist farmers, he believes urgent action needs to be taken to protect the sector.
I am thinking now is that in the interest of the country, the government may have to find a way of ensuring at least they buffer some of the cost of the fertilizer, because that is going to be very impactful, and not only our export potential, but also for our own food and nutrition security too. So the government have to make certain policy decisions. Say, listen, we might as well subsidize fertilizer and certain kind of input, which would in fact give us a bigger boost in terms of our own food security and less dependent on food from outside, which may mean less energy. You buffer your energy costs also, because anytime goods have to come from outside, it's high cost and it's more revenue going out of your country.
Green said in the meantime, ECTAD farmers are making the use of alternatives to escape the price of increases of fertilizers.
If you use the right blend of fertilizer, instead of using, say, 5 sacks of fertilizer, you may need only to use 3, by also encouraging them to incorporate green matter from back into the soil, using a lot of organic matter. So you minimize, you cut down on your cost by minimizing the use of fertilizer.
Today, March 22nd, SVG joined the global community in observing World Water Day. Celebrated under the theme Groundwater, Making the Invisible Visible, the day has been marked since 1993 and seeks to raise awareness about the billions of persons living without access to fresh water. In an address to mark the occasion, SVG's Minister of Health, Wellness and the Environment, Sinclair Jimmy Prince, highlighted the importance of water and the need for better management of this precious resource.
The ongoing coronavirus pandemic and the recent eruption of La Soufrière volcano brought into sharp focus how important water is and how fragile is its availability. On this World Water Day, we are indeed grateful that the CWSA is providing direct water supply to over 95% of households. And more, the authority is seeking ways to improve the supply. We ought not to take this for granted. It is our hope that we will continue to pay attention to the conservative prerequisites regarding access to a safe water supply.
The Health Minister also noted in his address that the Central Water and Sewerage Authority, CWSA, plans to place more emphasis on the production of groundwater.
The volcanic eruption gave rise to the need for this focus as surface water was unusable prior to testing, filtering, and regular treatment. During the eruption, the authority was able to extract from the borehole at Penistone approximately 20,000 gallons of water in 1 week. This source and the overlander source were identified in 2009 when a World Bank water resource study was done. Resulting from that eruption experience, the CWSA was able to seek and secure funding to facilitate a project to extract water from the borehole at Overland. This project, which is in its early stages, is expected to supply water to residents of Sandy Bay and Owier and will replace the extraction of surface water from rivers of these communities.
The UN said as climate change gets worse, groundwater will become more and more critical, and that a collaborative effort is needed to sustainably manage this resource. Minister of Tourism, Civil Aviation, Sustainable Development and Culture, Carlos James, told the 6th sitting of the OECS Assembly on Friday, March 18th, that climate change is the greatest existential threat to the Caribbean countries, notwithstanding the challenges resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic and the recent geopolitical activities in Europe.
From the pandemic and the economic challenges, but we will never be able to recover from the impact of climate change if measures are not taken to swiftly address the vulnerabilities, the issues that we are facing as states. Madam Speaker, if you look at the estimates of revenue and expenditure for every member state, you will see the significant resources allocated for expenditure and mitigation, adaptation. Members of this assembly, both the executive and the opposition, you may disagree on a number of varying policy issues. But one thing that there's a consensus on is that we are spending way more than we need to, because we can't afford it, on combating the challenges brought on by climate change.
Minister James cautioned that the region will never be able to recover from the severity of the impact of climate change if measures are not taken swiftly to address the vulnerabilities affecting small island developing states, SIDS.
Economic burden. We are borrowing. Sometimes the loans which we borrow to deal with adaptation measures are not even on concessionary terms. and our debt to GDP continues to increase, but yet there are countries who continue to lead in this blatant destruction of lives, livelihoods, and our planet. In the interest of earning millions and billions, but yet small island states, we are spending to mitigate. We are spending to deal with loss and mitigation and adaptation. And a wide component of our budget in every member state here. You'll agree on that?
The Sustainable Development Minister said that following the United Nations Climate Change Conference, COP26, they are yet to see definitive progress on tracking the delivery of pledge funding for mitigation and adaptation measures or a new collective qualification goal on climate finance.
Small states continue to borrow, to mitigate. And Madam Speaker, we'll not reiterate the point. We simply cannot continue to do this as small island developing states with all of our vulnerabilities. We must take a fresh guard as we prepare yet for another conference of parties. And I agree with the Honourable Prime Minister of Antigua. Dialogue, yes, but less dialogue on unrealistic goals, but a more targeted approach in how we can access climate finance, real responses and effective responses to commitments in honouring the Paris Agreement, and how we as small island developing states, our economies, we can partner with developed countries in a more tangible way.
The 6th sitting of the OECS Assembly held in St. John's, Antigua under the theme, The Shift, Embracing New Platforms and Innovative Models for Leadership in Sustainability, brought together members of the parliaments and the legislators of the 11 OECS member states to consider and seek common solutions to the issues that affect the OECS region. The Caribbean islands have been identified as one of the world's top biodiversity hotspots, with both a high level of regionally unique species and a severe degree of habitat loss and vulnerability to extinctions. The 6th sitting of the OECS Assembly provided a platform for member states to elevate the discourse on the health, productivity, and diversity of the region's ecosystems and biological resources as essential to economic viability, and propose initiatives and follow-up actions for the United Nations Climate Change COP27 in Egypt and the United Nations Biodiversity Meeting in Kunming, China later this year. In May 2022, St. Vincent and the Grenadines will host the 9th Council of Ministers on Environmental Sustainability, which Minister James said provides an opportunity to take a fresh guard on addressing the challenges to SIDS. As COVID-19 cases in St. Vincent and the Grenadines continue to decline and the public awaits word on Vincimas 2022, Opposition Member of Parliament for West Kingstown and Shadow Minister for Health, Daniel Cummings, said he believes government has no solid plan for Carnival. Cummings told SVG-TV News that the opposition has not been made aware of any upcoming revisions that will be made to the legislation governing the Public Health Act when Parliament convenes this Thursday. Commenting on the announcement made by Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves that a 70% target of vaccination is required for Carnival to be staged, Cummings said he considers this unrealistic.
It makes no sense. The bottom line is that you cannot equate levels of vaccination with any level of safety. Vaccinated or unvaccinated, people need to be judicious. That is to say, they must do the social distancing, they must continue to wash, and they must continue to wear the mask. That is what is required. Because if you don't, vaccination in itself is not going to cut it. You're going to have the same spike if you don't do these things. And that's the message we've been trying to urge this government to understand from day one. As important as vaccination is, it is not the panacea. Regardless of the levels, that is not going to cut it.
Cummings questioned government's policies about the management of the pandemic for the staging of Vincy Mass.
Well, we don't even know if there's going to be a carnival or what format it's going to be. We are hearing rumors. But if you're trying to use as I suspect they're doing, using the possibility of carnival as a means of getting people vaccinated, it isn't going to work. I mean, you only have to see that the sanitation workers in public health department who have been fired from their job have been called back on the job because they were wrongly dismissed and all of that. The policies need to be real. They need to be related to situations where people pose a risk and not using as a punishment for people.
The opposition MP added while he is not in favor of government relaxing all COVID-19 restrictions as other Caribbean territories have done recently, he believes government is mismanaging the public health with its dependence on vaccination.
Other Caribbean countries, for example, have made major changes. Trinidad, for example, has made substantial changes in the protocol, But St. Vincent, on the one hand, seems to be rolling over and nothing has happened, except that they're pushing more and more for vaccination. To continue to just push for vaccination without advocating for the other critical components of dealing with the pandemic continues to be the baffling aspect of this government's mismanagement of this whole affair.
Chief Operating Officer in the Ministry of Tourism, Faylene King, has praised the opening of a new conference facility in Beckway, calling it a valuable addition to the tourism industry. Spring Hotel Beckway opened the doors to the new facility on March 14th, and the venue can accommodate up to 150 people. King said the facility offers many possibilities for the hotel and SVG.
Spring Hotel has positioned itself to stand out and attract additional spending. And I dare to say, I think it stands out to maybe be boasting right now of having the largest facility of this kind, or at least one of, in the destination. This offers limitless possibilities for the property and for our country. Among other things, this niche generates greater spending, and it is not limited to the peak season, which generally attracts the leisure visitor. Tourism trends have shown that MICE tourism is one of the key drivers of our sector's development, and it is an important generator of income, employment, and investment.
Communications Manager in the Ministry of Tourism, Julian Charles Scott, said the ministry is pleased to see an increase in tourism offerings despite the setbacks the industry has suffered due to the global pandemic.
Amidst this volatile season, the ministry is proud to have seen an increase in room stock, an increase in construction of new tourism accommodations and amenities throughout St. Vincent and the Grenadines. No doubt, this certainly shows us that the tourism and hospitality industry is quite resilient, and we must forge ahead in this uncertain time.
Hotel manager Jason Sargent emphasized that the hotel supports investments in tourism as well as the local community.
The management of Spring Hotel believes that as we invest in tourism, we should also invest in our community. Over the years, Spring Hotel Beckway, we have hosted many educational fundraisers, graduation events. We believe as we continue, along with many of our partners, as we continue to invest in education of our youth, we will continue to create the foundation on which our island's youth can receive the education that they deserve.
The renovated market buildings in capital Kingstown will soon be open to the public. This is according to Minister of Urban Development, Energy, Seaports, Grenadines Affairs and Local Government, Senator Julian Francis, on radio recently, saying that the delay of the opening of the renovated market buildings was primarily due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
So we spent money and it is not all complete. There's still a couple things to be done. That's not what's holding it up. Immediately following that, COVID is the main reason why those have not yet been occupied. Because of the protocols and the idea of taking the vendors off of an open air area, putting them in the peak of COVID into a closed area.
The three buildings, which would house about 300 vendors, would however not be enough to accommodate all of the vendors on the streets of Kingstown. Minister Francis said the town board is fine-tuning a list of vendors who will be given priority to take up stalls in the buildings.
Town board is also fine-tuning a list for me of vendors, the longest serving vendors on the streets, who we will give priority to going into those accommodations. That's basically why it's not done yet. And that's the main reason. In fact, now that we are down to 1-2 cases and it looks like we're over the worst, it is getting attention now, and town board is getting that information that we are asking for at the moment.
Minister Francis said the Kingstown vegetable market would also be used to accommodate the remaining vendors on the street.
In the central market, there are vacant spaces. If you go into the central market, you will see stalls empty in there all day. Vendors are going to have the option of going back into the market because we are going to declare some areas not for vendors. So to identify spots in town after that where vending will be allowed. And outside of that, then basically they won't have a choice but to go back into the market.
Francis also spoke of the relocation of the vendors in Arnisvale, noting that plans are also in place for them.
Arnisvale is second to this one. The priority is to get Kingstown. Discussions have been held with the owners of the property, Massey. You know, there's a back parking lot by the river. Discussions have been held and the permission have been given. I don't have it yet in writing for us to establish some stalls along the back wall, along the riverbank there. And we should be moving there next to try and clean up that area.
Edwin Edwards, a 50-year-old painter from Camden Park, was arrested and charged with the offenses of assault causing bodily harm and 2 counts of theft. Police say investigations revealed that on 2 separate occasions on Monday, March 21st, the accused allegedly stole several items from Correa's Hazels Incorporated in Arnisvale, valued at $1,358.28. The accused was further charged with assaulting a 21-year-old security guard of Richland Park by squeezing and pulling her left hand with his hands, causing actual bodily harm. The accused is expected to appear before the magistrate's court to answer to the charges. Meanwhile, police are investigating a report of theft filed by a 69-year-old unemployed resident of Redemption Sharps against some unknown person or persons. According to the report, several beauty products and personal items valued at just over 4,000 EC dollars were stolen from the virtual complainant at Redemption Sharps between August 1st and December 24th, 2021. Anyone with information that can assist with the investigations is asked to contact the Assistant Commissioner in charge of crimes at 457-1211, the officer in charge of the Criminal Investigations Department at 456-1810, or any police station or police officer you're comfortable with. The police say all information will be dealt with confidentially.